if you don't skate, you don't get it. That's basically it. So I think the enjoyment comes from everything that's associated with skating. You know, when you're trying to build a career, the achievements you get along the way, the tricks you learn, and even if you're not building a career, you still try and do those things. You try and, you know, develop yourself as a skateboarder. I think that's the challenge. Yeah, you're going to get hurt. There's no question. Skating is not one of those things you can pad up as much as you like. You're going to slam. You're going to lose teeth. You're going to break an arm or a leg or something, or you're going to do damage to ligaments. Just how skating is, because you have to, at some point you have to go for it. And if you're not ready for it, it's all going to go bad. So I think there's a challenge. Initially when I first started skating, the challenge was to get down the hill in one piece. We never had skate parks back in '75. That to me was the challenge then, and that challenge has always just grown a bit higher each time as you get better and better. The challenge was just, I guess in the 80s, was to try and win contests. That was the drive. So you knew that you didn't know through video or anything other than just word of mouth what some guy was doing. You know, I heard that guy was doing this trick. I better go learn that, or do it bigger, or better, or longer. That was the drive, really, just to become, you know, the best, I guess, and have fun at the same time. It's not about trying to be the best all the time. You just got to have fun with it. And I guess if you look at it now, it's kind of gone full circle. There's no career for me anymore in skating. But I just enjoy the idea of still progressing. But, you know, I've lost more tricks than I've got, obviously. But I just enjoy doing what I'm doing these days. That's still a challenge for me.
And your board?
I still have it. So I have a couple of my favourite boards. My favourite boards are boards I started skating on. Plastic one called a Go Power. My story behind, I guess, skating was probably not very dissimilar to a lot of people. Wasn't allowed to skateboard initially, so I rode my friends. And then I eventually I tricked my dad into buying me a skateboard. I went to the shop and I said, oh, Mum said I could have one. Really? Yeah. Took it home, Mum lost it. Hey, you know, but that's, you know, what do you do? Got my skateboard. Still have that. My other favourite would be not one that I rode, the one that I've got from Chris Stropel. Yeah, that's a favourite board just to have as a in the collection. But boards I rode, like I got a Lance Mountain, which was probably the second ever board I bought because I was sponsored through the 70s and early 80s. So I had a lot of things. I had a lot of boards given to me. Caballero, that was my first ever pro board. Still have that. But worn to death, tails this long on it. We rode it to death. Everything I ever got, I kept because I just really, dug it and figured at some point I could use it again, or I'm sentimental about that stuff, so I just sort of held on to it. I guess any board that's functional, I think that's a big thing. You can get a skateboard that sucks, and you can get a board that's functional. I think that's the key. Having a board or a selection of boards that work. If you take it back to the 70s, a lot of those guys, they had the quiver section in Skateboarder magazine, and these dudes had some guys had a 5 quiver skateboard collection that they rode constantly, and they would say, oh, this one's good for banks, this one's good for bowls, this one's good for deep bowls, this one's good for shallow bowls, this one's good for freestyle. And that's kind of what you build your knowledge around, the fact that you need a board that can do all those things, or you have a few boards that can do a few things, you know what I mean? So I'm trying to build a board that can do everything, and I've got a board right now that does that, so I'm quite lucky that I've got the knowledge and the equipment to help me do that, to build a board that's functional everywhere. I'm riding a Lifeblood deck, Ace truck, Spitfire wheels. Just not sponsored by them, but can't say enough about the products. I think they're really good. They work. Everything turns, everything works. The timber's good, the trucks turn, the wheels are fast. Love it. So back in the 80s, you didn't have YouTube. You had very limited access to videos. So if you got a video, you'd get it. Early 80s was nothing. I think 85 was the first time I saw a video. It was the Bones Brigade video. And Tony Hawk was doing finger flip airs, big backside ollies, all this incredible stuff we'd never seen before. I only seen stills in magazines again. Back to the magazine reference, you evolve through the magazines. You see a still shot of this trick. How do you get to that position? How would you do a boneless? We saw a boneless shot like the guy's up there like that. How do you get into that position? Do you air into it? I don't know, how do you do it? So we didn't really know until we started seeing sequences. And this movie came out, the Bones Brigade video show, the very first Bones Brigade video. Well, it's one before, a couple of before that, but that was like the very first one that was recognised. Of all these tricks all of a sudden. You can see them being done. You're like, wow, okay, there's one. Oh man, that's just, yeah, okay, I'll do that one. And there's another one. And there's like all these tricks. So it becomes overwhelming at first until you just sort of slow down the brain and just go, all right, well, that's that one. I'll watch that a few times. And this is before slow-mo too. On video settings, you couldn't watch slow-mo. Yeah, you just had you watch it at real time, and that was, you had to try and somehow compute that, work all that. But that was pretty much it. So you had the magazines, you had videos. The tricks came as skating evolved like it did in the 70s. And it progressed at a pretty rapid rate once it took off again after about 86. And tricks to learn, man, I don't know. I think the equipment was backwards. I think a lot of the equipment was heavy and it sucked in the 80s. I think that was a problem from the manufacturers, but I think as the skating progressed, the equipment got better again, because they sort of took, I guess, through the early 80s, there wasn't much evolution at all in terms of the boards. They've got concave, but they're still really heavy. So as a kid, you're still battling with this thing that weighs such a lot. Try and maneuver it, whereas the boards today are really light. They maneuver quite easily. You hang your toes over it, can do this. And it was back then, we were actually walking around the board a lot to make it work. So it was a lot different. But tricks to learn, I guess, difficult ones. When things started to spin, like 540s, they were kind of probably the hardest ones to learn. Because again, all we saw was a sequence in the magazine. We saw Mike McGill, who was the inventor of it, going up, spinning, he's upside down. Okay, I think it was a 3-shot sequence. So you got 3 shots, or maybe 5. You got those 5 shots to cover the move, coming up forward, spinning 540. It was really confusing to initially see that, because until we saw it on video, which was probably not long after, we didn't really know what to do. And we went out and tried it and smashed our shins and landed on our backs, because there was no real understanding of how it was done. Now they've got foam pits. Now there's resi pits to land on, which is, again, makes it easier, but you still got to go for it at some point. If you land on a resi, you're still going to slam your face if it doesn't work out right. You're still going to wreck your knee. It's just a matter of you got a softer landing to go onto if it does work out. If it doesn't work out, you're going to slam on concrete or on hard timber. That's how when it started to spin. When flips started coming in the 90s, it's a different era though, but that really changed it. But the 540 was definitely, and the 720, they were definitely groundbreaking moves. And I believe the 900 was attempted back then as well. So there's a lot of spinning going on in the 80s. Yeah, my dad was fantastic. I'd be on the back of his motorbike, we'd go. Once I got my little crew together, Dad kind of let me go and be part of that group. He'd still take me if I needed to go somewhere. But basically, he'd just yeah, okay, you can go with your friends, which I guess was probably painful for him to let me go and do that, but I guess at the same time it was kind of good for me, because I kind of grew, and we ran around a lot. We would go to places, we would be gone all day. As a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, we were gone all day. Back then it was okay, I think. I don't think it was. Today's very different, but we would basically go. We lived in Fawkner, go to the city, and decide on the way down on the trip to the city where we were going that day. If we're going to go to Ringwood, if we're going to go to Werribee Pipes, if we're going to go to down to Parkdale, if we're going to go to Melton, and usually that was the deal. I would work out where to go all the day before. And for example, Melton you would get the train from Spencer Street. It was a Vic Rail train, so it was the Red Rattler. Basically, you get on the train, and you never know who you would see on there. You get on there, and you might confront some skinheads, and they're too busy slashing seats to care about you. They're slashing and throwing rocks out windows at trains that are passing by. You'd kind of get on and just go to your seat and just have your lunch and can't wait to get off to go skating. And then you'd get to Melton train station, get off, and you'd skate half an hour to get to the skate park along dirty roads with tons of roadkill. Just man, crazy. You just go, you'd skate there, and then you'd skate there for whatever 10 till 4, because the train came at 4 or 4:30. And if you were late for the train, you were stuck there all night. So there was one train there, one train home. So you had to be there, to get the train and to get it back. So we made sure we were always early for the train on the way back. But you get to we just travelled, man. We just didn't care. Didn't have cars for a long time. Werribee Pipes was another one. You'd get on the train, take your bike, you'd ride from Werribee Station Don't even know how far it was, but we just knew how to get there. We just rode our bikes to Ruby. Luckily, we got flat tyres. We just would have been a nightmare to get a flat tyre out there. But we'd ride there again, skate all day, and ride our bikes back, covered in cement dust and coughing up, chunks of cement dirt and stuff. But we just got on with it and skated. And going to Ringwood's another one. You'd go to Ringwood, stop at Nunawading Pipes, go to Ringwood, and then on then the same line, I think it was down. You go on to Doveton, and go to skate Doveton. So you skate 3 parks in that one day. But you just did it all day. And again, there was never, the skate parks were hardly ever near the train station. They were miles away. So as a skater, if you didn't know, you'd just be going, okay, who can we ask? Skateboarders weren't necessarily the greatest people on earth back then. No one liked skateboarders. So you'd be asking, they'd go, oh yeah, it's that way. And it's actually that way, pointing in the wrong direction. So you'd be like, oh, cool, thanks. And you'd be heading in the wrong direction for 20 minutes, going, somebody else, it's ridiculous. And then, eventually you'd find it where it was. And often you go there, there'd be glass smashed in it. As kids, you don't bring brooms and stuff. You don't bring dustpans. You just skate around it or just make a pile and leave it there. So, I'm not saying it was hard, but it certainly wasn't easy. We just got on with it. We didn't really care. And the parks were never perfect, man. They were horrible. It's every park you skated, you had a bleeding reminder of it. If you slammed, you just get grazed and your pads would just tear off because the concrete was so rough and you end up with, big, gnarly legs. And, the worst one was Parkdale, I reckon. That was rough. It's like a cheese grater. It was great.